how'd you like that? Pretty dramatic, huh? YouTube experts all seem to agree that you need something dramatic in the first 3 seconds of a video to trick people into watching the whole thing. YouTubers are taught that viewers are like fish just waiting to be caught, and all we need to do is feed you some bait so that you'll click. Anyway, back in the dark days of 2020 during my lockdown woodworking series, I made a plywood prototype of this folding table over the course of 3 videos. It only took me 3 years, but I'm finally getting around to making a proper version with fully detailed plans available at shopwwmm.com. Just so you know, I'm pretty sure the rest of this video isn't going to be nearly as dramatic as that first part. I'm gonna build mine out of some redwood boards that are left over from when I built my deck a few months ago. I wanna start by making the top of the table first so I can glue it up and have plenty of time for it to dry. I've already cut these boards down to their length and width. That was the dramatic part at the beginning. But what I need to do now is resaw these into thinner boards. So in the plans for this project, I've set it up so that you can make the entire thing using one 8-foot long 2x6 board. The only thing about that is that you'll need to resaw 2 of these boards right down the middle, which means the tabletop won't be exactly 3/4 of an inch thick. It'll be a little bit thinner, which isn't that big of a deal. But I've got enough of these leftover chunks that I can go ahead and set this up so that I can get a full 3/4 inch thick tabletop. In case that didn't make any sense to you, a 2x6 board is 1.5 inches thick. So when I cut it in half, I'm not gonna get a full 3/4 inches on each side because I'm gonna lose about 1/8 of an inch for the thickness of the saw blade. That material in the middle just poof, vanishes into sawdust. So obviously my blade doesn't raise high enough to cut through this entire board, so what I can do is just cut through half of it on this way and then flip it around and cut the remaining half this way. But I only want to take away a little bit at a time so that this saw doesn't bog down and stop. The main thing I need to do is set this up so that I can make this cut safely without the board tipping over. This is my feather board that I can slide in here, and this is gonna keep pressure against the board as it's feeding into the saw. This keeps the board moving forward so it won't get pushed back towards me. I'll feed the board through the blade using a push block to push down and forward, and then I'm going to use a push stick to kind of stabilize the board and keep the in-feed part pressed against the fence. As I get closer to the point where the 2 halves could split apart, I'm using my push stick to press down on that leading edge of the workpiece, the side closest to the fence. So there's my 4 thick pieces and my 4 thinner pieces. I'll save these for another project. And if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you've probably seen me edge join boards together to make panels like this about 1,000 times. So the way I always start this out is by just finding the grain pattern that I like the best. One thing a lot of woodworkers are really obsessed with is looking at the ends of the boards and making sure that they go in alternate curving patterns. And the idea there is that it's supposed to eliminate the board from buckling. One potential warp cancels out the one going the other way. Something like that. But in my experience, that makes very little difference once these are all glued up. I think it's more important to prioritize the look of the panel and examine the face grain and make sure that all of the grain looks good together. In this particular case, I don't really notice any distinct patterns that need to match up. This is kind of the most interesting board, so I guess I just put it here on the edge. Sort of makes sense than have it in the middle. Actually, that doesn't look too bad like that there. This sort of blends together. The thing about edge joining is to really make sure that this glue is spread completely over all surfaces of that edge. If you just leave it like a bead of glue or something, there's going to be spots that don't have glue on them, and that will probably show as a seam. Also, I cut these boards a little bit longer than their final size. That way I don't have to make sure that the edges are all completely flush, because they might slide around a little bit. So then once this is all dry, I can cut that and square it up. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure here, not much. Now I can use my clamping cauls here on the ends to flatten this out. So these two boards are just going to smush those four boards all flat. And really, if you want to simplify this, just make this out of a single piece of plywood. There's no rule that says you can't use plywood. The only drawback to it is that the edges will show it, and if those plies don't bother you, then go for it. You can cut all the pieces to this project all at once. The four legs are all the same length, and there's two shorter pieces that'll be used to connect the top. I'm going to join the legs together using dowels, and in my plans I've got an exact diagram of where all of those holes need to go on the legs. And I'm not going to say that you absolutely have to have a drill press to do this, but it sure is going to be a lot more accurate, a lot easier to do than to draw out where all of those holes go and then use a handheld drill. You could do it that way, but this is really going to be a lot easier. I'll run a test on this scrap board first to make sure I get this positioned in the right spot. Not quite. I'd like to have this hole back a little bit further, so I'll just slide my stop block over about like that. I'll run a test on this side. Okay, that looks pretty good. So the next hole needs to be right near the center here. My fence isn't long enough to set up my stop block, so what I'm gonna have to do is attach this to my fence so that I can clamp a stop block over here. It's a little wonky, but I think for four holes it's okay. These two pieces are the connecting strips that are going to attach to the underside of the table. I'll attach them using screws, and so I don't have to use really long screws, I'll drill a counter bore halfway through this board. Then I can use a smaller bit to bore all the way through. The smaller hole will actually be a little bit easier to drill by hand. I can just feel where the point was from the other bit. I'll probably just use these pocket screws since they have that wide head. They'll just drop in like that. I'm using this spool from an empty roll of tape to draw that curve on this scrap board. I'm using my disc sander to round this over. I want to make a template that I can draw on the rest of the legs. Now I can draw that on all the legs. The ends that don't have a hole on it, I'm just gonna kind of line it up best I can. Over at my router, I'm going to add a small chamfer around the edge of all of the pieces, including the top. I need to cut out 4 equal length dowel pins. To do that, I'm going to use this block to set up that length between it and the blade. This will just keep that cut off piece of the dowel from getting trapped between my rip fence and the blade and shooting back at me. I can cut out the 2 longer dowels using the stop block on my miter gauge. I'll join the 2 inner legs together with these 2 longer dowels. Whoops, whoops, that's wrong. That's the wrong one. Shoot. This is not the one for those. Uh-oh. Come on, get out of there. Can't believe I did that. Alright, let's figure out how to get this out. I might pop it out of there, but then this one's gonna get stuck in there. Alright, there. Down. Ah, look what happened. Okay, take this out of there. See if this is fixable. Oh no. Okay, I'm gonna just try to glue this together. I think I can do this. Oh man, that was really dumb. All right, so these are the 2 pieces that broke off. This is a MacGyver job here. Well, there you go. What do you think about that? Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in this short little dowel now because it goes in back here. Because that glue on that will help bond with the glue on these pieces and just make that super strong. It'll be stronger than before the break. Okay, I refuse to have to cut another one of these legs. No, it has to go like this. Oh, I so want to tap that in. You think this is gonna? You think it's gonna bust it? Ah, look at that. So that's working. Okay. Look at that. How's that for a recovery? So now this one goes on the opposite way, so it's gonna stick out this side. So these are the outer legs. It's a lot easier to do it when it's not all split. All right, so there's the idea. I've got this one sticking out on this side and this one on the inside. Uh-oh, that one cracked too. You know what the problem is here? These dowels are just a little bit too thick. I probably should have tested those before driving them in there. So what I can do, well, I'm gonna fix that first of all. I can just squish some glue down in there and clamp this together. Don't worry, it'll be good as new. That one went in easy. There you go. So I can see the glue squeezing out inside of that crack, and that'll be enough to hold it. All right, it's actually gonna be strong enough to hold this together. What's the lesson here? That I should have tested these ahead of time, and if they're too tight, just sand them down, sand these ends down a little bit. They don't need to be tight at all because that glue is gonna hold them in place. It's funny because I didn't experience that problem at all on my prototype version. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Well, not this, but actually I've been making mistakes for over 40 years. One of these days I'll figure out woodworking. But you know, this is really a testament to glue because I have no doubt that this is going to hold it together fine, just as if it hadn't broken. Trust the glue. Ah, see there? A little bit of testing never hurt. Okay, I've totally got this. Totally, everything's under control. Ah, look at that. See, it should just slide in like that. Shouldn't have to pound it. I'm gonna go down this bottom hole here. Yoink! Look at that. Just slides right in. Really, it's always better when it just slides in easily and you don't have to pound it. Look at that. No splitting. This would probably work better with hardwood, I suppose. I didn't have any leftover hardwood from making a walnut deck. I got everything sanded down nice and smooth, and I wanted to show you how that repair finally turned out. It looks pretty good. It's almost invisible on both of those. Okay, I'm sanding down these little pieces just enough to make sure that they fit good this time and aren't going to split any wood. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, so the way this goes together is these are gonna be the outside legs, and they're gonna attach to this thing here. Yeah, okay, so this is gonna be the top of the table. All right, something like that. Okay, so then, that middle stubby thing there goes in like this. Okay, you following me here? Like that. Okay, I got these on upside down. Yeah, see there? So it looks like a table now, doesn't it? Okay, I just want to make sure that the big holes, those counter bores, are on the underside here. That's why I had that in backwards. Okay, so that all fits together pretty good. Now, all I need to do now is attach these things to the top. So I'll try to center this as best as I can. Goes this way. This will come in like that. And as long as it's got clearance here, it should be all right. I can't push it all the way down because those clamps are in the way. But that looks pretty good. So this little cleat is gonna go right there, and that's just gonna stop this center bar from going too far. Now what I can do is turn this around, or turn this right side up, and just see if it's level. So I'm moving this in just a little bit, like right about there. Should work. So all I need to do now is take this over to my finishing room. But first, I think I'll take this apart. And that's also kind of the nice thing about this, is that these side pieces will just pop right out of there. There. You could use any kind of finish on this. I'm using spray lacquer. I'm putting a little paste finishing wax on these dowels to make them rotate easier and spin without any squeaking. One of the things I kind of like about this folding table is that this dowel back here kind of doubles as a handle, so it's pretty easy to carry around and it's pretty lightweight. And of course, to set it up, this just all pops out like that.